leather crafting.
Hi, I'm Dan. I'm going to show you how to saddle stitch this leather necklace today. This is a Norse hammer or Mjolnir, two-sided leather, and I have it mounted in my stitching pony. We're going to be saddle stitching this up with not one but two needles. Now I've saddle stitched some other leather projects like this wallet, this handy dandy leather notebook, all using the same technique. So we're going to have, again, one needle in one hand and one in the other. And the trick here is we're also holding our awl at the same time. Now we have to place the awl in our hand so we can also hold the needle at the same time. So let me show you what I mean. Now, the needles are connected to the same piece of thread, equal length on each side. So as I go to the next hole, I'm going to be using my awl and making sure that I can go through to the next side. Now I've pre-marked the holes and pre-awled them on both pieces before stitching them, but they still need a little bit of more awl love before the needles can pass through easily. Okay, and see what I mean? The name of the game here is to keep the needles and the awl in your hands at the same time. Now once one needle goes through, you can grab it with the same hand, and you're going to want to do the same thing with the other needle, but you're going to be going through the same hole but the other direction. Now we're going to swap hands, or swap needles. And as I pull them both tight, we move on to the next, making sure to keep everything taut. Now same thing with my awl, finding the next hole, and then more importantly finding the corresponding hole in the back without poking through somewhere that's not the hole. Now this can be tricky. Some people like to glue the pieces together. I don't. I like to have a little bit of give, because these are all handmade. And don't be afraid to get your finger close to the awl so you can feel exactly where these needles need to go. And again, I've pre-marked and pre-awled the holes, but not all the way through. Sorry for all the puns when working with the awl. It's inevitable, but it is awfully fun. There's another one. Sorry. Remember, when you pull snug, I try to not pull from the knots that are connecting the needles. Okay, same thing. And you hold the awl in a bit of an awkward fashion if you're trying to hold it at the same time without dropping the needles. Now you can drop the needles if you need to when you're starting out, and I often do as well, but the ultimate name of the game here is to never drop anything, and to always keep the awl in your favored hand. And don't move on too far until you make sure everything is snug. And don't poke through somewhere that isn't a hole, especially on the back. Now if you feel like you're having a hard time, run the awl again. If the awl can't go through easily, the needle won't be able to. Now you don't want to go all the way through. You want to go just enough so the needle can pass through. Now, again, swap hands or swap needles, however you look at that, and tighten it up. Again, I'm working on a leather necklace. This is a Norse symbol of Thor. In Norse it's pronounced a Mjolnir. See, instinctively I just dropped the needle just because it wasn't quite comfortable with that other side. And again, I'm still not quite comfortable. So again, if the needle feels labored, don't force it. If the awl doesn't go through, neither will the needle. Okay. Switch hands. In a nice snug fashion. Now I'm coming up close to the last hole in this. This is fun. I'll be able to show you a way to tie off here. This is great. You know, again, you have your stitching pony. You know, it's kind of mounted underneath on a lip of a table. There's also a couple of adjustments I like to change as I work on this. You know, you can use your Allen key and get this set up in a position that you feel most comfortable if you're standing versus sitting. And it really depends on the shape of the object. The shape of the leather that you're stitching up that's inside. You know, it's a nice way to keep, it's a nice third and fourth set of hands. It's already hard enough and cumbersome enough to hold on to the awl and the two needles at the same time. But if you were trying to maneuver the leather piece as well, sometimes it works if you kind of hold it between your knees, but you can also take a needle to the knee or the thigh that way. So you just have to be careful not to mar your leather. I like to put another piece of leather in between, so the wood is not directly in contact with your finished piece. You're going to have a buffer piece of leather in there so you don't mar your leather. And as you work, you loosen the jaw clamps a bit and pivot, rotate, what have you, your work, so you can work a little bit easier. Because obviously you're going to get finished with one side and move on to the next. Very seldom do you work on a piece that you can sort of mount in there and never have to move again. Sometimes. But usually you'll mount something like the notebook. And of course it was open, so it was quite a few stitches. But it would be do the top, open the clamps, reclamp, and then do this line, then do this line. I mean, I guess you could go down, but you're going to run into problems on the bottom trying to go through. So there's a couple other bits that I want to make sure we go over right before we tie off. So this is waxed thread, and you can tie it off on the needles any way you like. Some people like to do special knots. I just like to use a standard knot, to be honest. It works fine for me, always has. Now, the technique of tying off is another matter, though. Now, I've put my awl away because I'm down to the last hole. So that's always exciting. You don't feel bad if you advance too far or have to retreat, as it were. And there's no shame in cutting off and starting anew, having to tie the needle back on. Now I've managed to do this small necklace pendant with never having to retie my needles, and that's fine by me. Now if I was doing a leather notebook, I would probably have to, because even if I did it without losing the knots, my arm span's not long enough for, say, a bigger notebook. So you'd have to tie off and do it in multiple thread sections, if you will. Alright, so let me make sure everything's tight, because as I go through the last the last hole, I don't want to come all the way through. I want to come out the middle, both of them, out, tie it, and tuck it so you're done. But you have to do that on the very last hole. Let me zoom in so you can see a little better. Alright, so here we are ready to finish up our leather necklace pendant. We're on our last hole, and we're saddle stitching, but we're not going to go all the way through like we usually do. In the very last hole, we're going to go through the hole we started, but only halfway through, because we're going to tie off in the center of this. So see what I'm doing there? Not going all the way through. Sorry for all the puns, guys and girls. I'm pushing this needle through the first layer. Okay. Let's get this off to the side here, and it looks finished on this side, which is great. Make sure that's nice and snug. Now let's flip it over. Same thing here. See this? We're going the other way through the hole we started, and see as we come up, see what I did there? Same thing. Through the middle. So that way when they come out, both sides are finished, all the stitches are there. Now we're tying off. Let me loosen up my pony here. Make sure I don't mar this nice finished piece here. And we're ready to tie off. Now we're inside now, as it were. So we're done. So all the pulling and tensioning has to happen now. Don't go crazy and break anything, but give it a little bit, one more snug pull. And you're gonna, I like to cut away my knots from my needles first. I know I'm done. I just do this for storage so my needles don't have stray bits everywhere. I just don't like that. In the beginning, I used to do that to kind of a visual reminder to myself as to what project I previously worked on, so I could clue myself into what needle I was using. But now I'm pretty standardized these days. I honestly use the same needles I used for hand upholstery and for leather work. Kind of hard to see these guys, but I like the saddle stitching with leather because you use not one, but two of these guys, in one in each hand, and all at the same time. But now that the needles are free, all we have to do is tie off. Now we have a really long lead, so I gave myself plenty of length here, so I'm going to cut off some excess first just with some scissors. Not too much, because I want to give myself still enough slack so I can tie off a nice tight knot inside. Nothing fancy, I just do a double knot. Do my first one, and I wish every last leather piece that I do a lot of luck. So the last stitch that gets, buried inside of here, hopefully it stays forever. And when we're done, we cut it as close as we can. Don't worry, there'll be some tucking going on. I make sure I throw all my stray pieces of twine away, and then you can take the needle and sort of tuck that knot. And let's take it out of the stitching pony and see what it looks like.